Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching video number 16, Installing and Administering Linux Apache Web Server. This is part of Fast Track CBT Video, Linux Networking and Administration. So in this video, first we're going to talk about what is Apache? Where did Apache come from? What can it do for you? We're going to learn about how to install Apache and some optional Apache components. We'll learn how to administer Apache. And then back at the Big Sky Fishing Supply Company, we'll learn how to install those components. You'll see how to configure Apache, and we'll create a default web page, and we'll test out Apache from our Windows client. So first off, what is Apache? Well, Apache is an open source web server, an HTTP server. Apache serves up web pages or HTML pages and most any other content that can be accessed via a web browser. So it could be some Flash components, it's JPEGs, GIF, pictures, video, whatever Apache has in the website, it serves up. Now it runs on Linux and Windows, so you can actually run Apache web server on a Windows 2003 server. Apache is the #1 web server on the internet today, and it's been the #1 web server since 1996. In fact, 70% of all internet websites run on Apache web server. Apache was created around 1995 by a group of webmasters who got together to create patches for the old HTTPD server that was available in Unix. They got together, they created these patches, and they sort of modified it, and they just started distributing it for free. Now today that group is called the Apache Software Foundation, and their homepage is httpd.apache.org. That's the homepage for Apache. Now the source and compiled versions of Apache are available for download from this website, and it's all free. So you can download the source, and if you're a developer, programmer type, you can modify the source and do whatever you want to do with it. Of course, you can download the compiled versions already for Linux and Windows, and when you install Fedora, you get a compiled version for Fedora Linux. So let's talk about installing Apache. Now, Fedora Linux 5 installs Apache web server by default. You can, of course, choose not to install it at the installation time if you wish, but Apache is disabled by default, so it isn't running, the service isn't started. It's there, but no process or no script starts that web server. Now, Fedora does not, however, install the 31 optional related applications that go along with Apache. You can install these from the Package Manager application. It also doesn't install the GUI web-based administration program, which we'll learn how to install as well. So let's talk about administering Apache. Now in Fedora Core 5 Linux, the Apache web server has its own configuration directory. This is in etc httpd. Now inside this directory there are subdirectories and soft links to other directories. The actual configuration file for Apache is at etc httpd/conf, and it's called httpd.conf. So this is the text file. You can go and edit if you choose to administer and modify Apache. Now all log files go to var log httpd, and this is actually referenced inside the etc http directory via a soft link. Now the httpd.conf file, of course, can be edited manually, and that's one way to administer Apache. Go in there, type commands and configurations, and edit that file to administer Apache. And we're going to talk about another way to administer Apache here in just a minute using graphical tools. Now Apache can be started manually by typing httpd at the command line, but the recommended way is to start it through the services program. Now the configuration file is filled with comments beginning with a hash or a £, and the configurations are either listed as directive space value, or they're in block quotes. When I say block quotes, it's like greater than, less than signs that go around the configuration. The document root directory, this is one of the directives, is where the default website is located, and that's actually in var www HTML, and we'll go there. You'll see that on our Linux server. Apache can also deliver users' web pages. This is defined with a user dir directive, and the users' directories can be accessed through Apache like this. So you got your web server slash and then a tilde, that's what that is, and then the user's name. So each user could have their own web pages through their home directory. Now Apache can also support virtual hosting with the virtual host directive. And if you rent a web server or website from one of these internet service providers on the internet, usually what they're doing is they're creating a virtual host for you, and that one web server serves many different websites. And they do that through the virtual host directive. You can create virtual hosts, of course, on your own. So say I had one web server and I wanted it to be a web server for the HR, Human Resources Department, and another website for the Marketing Department. I can put them both on the same web server and create virtual hosts for each one. Now Apache cannot be run from a super server like XynetD. They don't recommend that. With Fedora Linux, you can install the system config HTTPD GUI front end to administer Apache. This is a graphical tool, and we're going to be installing this in just a minute. So let's move on to our scenario. So in our scenario with the Big Sky Fishing Supply Company, you need to create a basic website on your Linux server for the Big Sky Fishing Supply Company's Bozeman, Montana location. To accomplish this, you want to install a couple optional packages. First one, the HTTP manual to help you learn more about HTTP. PHP is a scripting language. You want to install that. You might have some scripts that a developer is going to be giving you. And then you're going to install the system config HTTPD GUI configuration tool for Apache. Next, we'll start the HTTPD server and set it to run automatically when the server boots. We'll verify that we can see the website or the web server from the Windows client. We'll use Writer to create a basic home page and put it in the document root directory, var www.html, and we'll call it index.html so it'll be the default web page that comes up. Then we'll go back to the Windows client and we'll verify again that we can access our new default web page, the index.html page. So let's get started. So if I go over here to our Linux server, here we are. What I've done is I've started the package manager program for us so we don't have to wait through the little search of applications it does when it starts up. To do that, I went to Applications and I went to Add Remove Software right here. So what we need to do now is select the packages we want to install. So if we go to Servers and we scroll down to the bottom here where it says Web Server, notice that that's already checked. That was installed by default. Now what isn't installed are the 31 optional packages. So if I click Optional Packages here, you can scroll down and you can select any of these optional packages. We're going to install the HTTPD manual, and we're going to install PHP. This is a scripting language. But there's other very useful tools in this list, such as Webalizer. It's a log file analysis tool. There's a caching server. There's a content management system. There's Tomcat, which is used for Java applications. And let's see what else. There's more statistics, logging, all sorts of good tools in here. So I'm going to close this out. And then we also want to install the GUI configuration program for Apache. To do this, I'm going to go to Server Configuration Tools and click Optional Packages. You would think that this package here would be over in the HTTPD web server, but it's not. It's a server configuration tool, and it's sort of hidden over here in the Server Configuration Tools list. So I'm going to check this checkbox right here next to System Config HTTPD. This is the Apache configuration tool. So I'm going to close that out, and we'll say Apply. And it says you've selected these packages to be installed. Are you sure? We'll say yes, continue. Now it goes out and it tries to resolve any dependencies to see if there's any other applications that are needed. It tells us it It did find some. This PHP pair application is needed as well. We'll say continue. That's fine. Luckily, it's there to figure that out for us, so we don't have to go and find that package ourselves and install it on our own. So it downloads these packages, and then in just a second it'll say it's updating. So it's basically installing these packages. And the software installation successfully completed. So I'll say OK, and this will close out. Alright, the next thing we need to do is to start the HTTPD server and set it to run automatically. To do this, I'm going to go to System, to Administration, down here to the Server Settings section, over to Services, and click on that. Now we'll scroll down, and it's not the Apache web server is not called Apache, remember. It's not called www, it's called HTTPD. And these are in alphabetical order, so here it is here in the H's, HTTPD, that's our web server. Now if I check the checkbox here, that'll set it to start automatically. I need to save that. And then I want to start it. So if I click Start right here, it says HTTPD start successful. So I'll say OK. And here's the PIDs down here that it started. It started multiple HTTP daemons to handle more requests. So let's close this. And now let's go over to our Windows client and let's see if we can access our web server. So if I go over here to my Windows client and I start Firefox, and then I type the IP address of our Linux server right there, and press enter, and here it tells me here's the Fedora core test page. It says this page is used to test the proper operation of the Apache HTTPD server after it's been installed. If you can read this page, it means that Apache HTTPD server installed at the site and is working properly. If you're the web administrator, you may now add content to this directory, which is the document root var www HTML, and so on and so forth. So we know our web server is up and running and we can access it over the network using our Windows client. So let's close this out, go back to our slides. So we're right here, we just verified that it works from the Windows client. The next thing we want to do is use Writer to create a basic home page and put it in the document root directory. We're going to call it index.html. So let's give that a shot. So I'm going to go up to the top up here and I'm going to click on the word processor, which is Writer. And it's going to start up Writer, and then we're going to create our new home page. Alright, so here we are in Writer. Let's say welcome to the Big Sky Fishing Supply Company, Bozeman, Montana website. Our services include, and we'll make like a bulleted list here, just a little sample web page. Rods, reels, bait, tackle, fishing services. And then what we'll do is we'll make these links. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go up here and click on this hyperlink icon. And let's just do a little test here. We'll make this a hyperlink to www.trainsignal.com. And we'll make this tackle down here. We'll make this a hyperlink. Oops, we'll make a hyperlink there to http www.google.com. Alright, so we got a couple hyperlinks. Let's change the font on this. Let's make it really big. Let's make it bold. Oh, we didn't get our explanation point there. Let's fix that. We'll make that 40, make that bold. And what else can we do down here? We can make this italic. And we'll change the font. So, now let's go to File and Save As. And I'm going to call the file index.html, and I want to save it on the file system. I want to browse for other files, and I want to put it in var www html. And I need to change the file type here to an HTML document. Right here, HTML. Move this up here so we can see it. So we got the file name, index.html. It's going in var www.html, and it's an HTML document. So I'm going to say save. And it says by saving this format, you'll lose the Open Office Writer specialization, configuration in here. That's fine. We'll say yes, because we know we're saving it as an HTML document. And let's close it out. So now let's go over to our Windows client and see if we can pull up that web page. So if I go back here to my Windows client, I open Firefox, and I type again 192.168.1.100, press enter, and here we go. We have the Welcome to the Big Sky Fishing Supply Company's Bozeman, Montana website. Our services include rods, reels, bait, tackle, and fishing services. And notice that these are hyperlinks here. So if I click on rods, notice it takes me over to trainsignal.com. If I click back and I click on tackle, and there we go, we got Google. So that hyperlink worked. So let's close this out. So we successfully tested our Linux web server from the Windows client, and we saw that we were able to access the new HTML web page that we created. So now let me go back to the web server, to the Linux server, and just show you a couple of the different configurations that you can use to administer Fedora Linux Apache web server. So first off, let me go up here to System, Administration, down to Server Settings, and over to HTTP. This is the System Config HTTPD program. So this is a graphical configuration program, and mostly what it does really is it edits the httpd.conf file over in Etsy. So all the things that you change in here are really just editing that configuration file. So you can see here that you can add other IP addresses for the server to respond on. You can add other virtual hosts, so you could add a website here for marketing, another one for human resources, and so on. You could add or modify the different file locations. You could do some performance tuning here. You could configure the maximum number of concurrent connections, the timeout, allow persistent connections, and so on. So this is the graphical configuration tool. Let's go look at the text file. So if I cd into Etsy, and I cd into HTTPD, and I do an ls-l, you can see here, here's the conf directory. That's the configuration file directory where the configuration file is stored. Here's confd, there's some other files in there. Then here's some soft links that point over to the log files, modules, and run. So if I cd into conf and I do an ls-l, you can see here's the httpd.conf file. So if I do more httpd.conf, you can see this is a file with a lot of different comments in it and a lot of different sections. So here's the very first directive space value right here. So it says server token space OS. If you scroll down, here's some more. Here's some more. And here's one of the sections I was talking about that's in block quotes, they call it. So here's a little less than, greater than symbol that breaks out some settings, and then here's the termination of it. It starts off with a slash to let you know that that's the termination of this section. So you can have sections of configuration like that as well. So this is a pretty long file. It goes on. And let's see, I just want to show you some important settings. So here's the document root. This is what points to the home directory for the web server. So that's where we saved our index.html file. And then here's a section in block quotes that shows the directory settings. Down here at the bottom, let me find it, are some examples of how to create a virtual host. Like I said, a very long file. Here we go, virtual host, section 3. So here it shows you an example of using name-based virtual hosts. Then down here is an example using a virtual host container. So here's a new virtual host they created, and here's the settings for that virtual host, and then here's where it terminates. So you could copy this and use it as an example to create your own virtual host. Or, of course, you could go up here to the graphical configuration tool under System, Administration, Server Settings, and HTTP, and it would just edit this httpd.conf file. So with that, we can go back to our slides. And we completed all the tasks in our scenario. We installed the HTTPD manual, the PHP scripting language, and the system config HTTPD. We started HTTPD and we set it to run automatically when the server boots. We verified we could see the default website. We used Writer to create a basic home page and put it in that default document root directory var www.html, and it was called index.html. Then we went over to the Windows client and we verified that we were able to pull up the new web page that we created. And finally we went back and we looked at the httpd.conf file located in etc httpd/conf, and we also looked at the graphical configuration tool called system config httpd. Alright, so in conclusion, in this video, video number 16, we found out what Apache was and what it could do for us. How it is the most popular web server on the internet. It comes installed with Fedora Linux, but it's not running. So you have to go in and configure it to start up automatically and start the services yourself. And then you have to go out and create web pages. We installed some of the optional tools in the optional GUI configuration program. We looked at the http.conf configuration file and the GUI configuration tool that edits that file. We created a default index.html web page and we put it in the document root, and we verified that our web server was working by going to our Windows client and pulling up the new website that we created for the Big Sky Fishing Supply Company. So that's the end of video number 16. Thank you very much.